Afreilach and Hanukkah, everyone, and welcome to Tanya Today. Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you in my home in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We say a good evening to TJ in Australia, Liba in Davida. Thank you. In New York, welcome. Erica in Norway is with us. Sandy in Michigan, if I remember correctly. Susan is in Scranton with us. John in North Carolina, welcome. Greg in Bakersfield, California, bright and early. Tim in Texas, welcome. June, also in Australia, where it's very late. Robert, shalom to you in Boston. Katie in Texas, welcome. Leah in Fort Myers, Florida, good morning. Zar is with us in Malaysia, welcome. Andrew in Springfield, New Jersey, good morning. Who else is with us? Eugenia in Calgary. Jan in Mexico, Boker Tov. Andrea in Phoenix is with us. Moshe in Arizona is with us. And Julie in Florida. Barbara in Pennsylvania. Winwood. I think my brother-in-law lives somewhere around there. Or there. Lori, thank you. Oh, Hashem is with us, and Michael, Virginia is with us, and David in Sacramento, California, Rena in Colorado, Sojan, welcome. Michael in Germany, Rotem, John in Switzerland, David in Toronto, Brian in Wales, Mogo, happy Hanukkah, from where? Heather in Norwood, Connecticut is with us, and Betty, Vilma, Diane in Arizona. We have on Clubhouse, Vilma's here too, Bachia and David, Luz, Adam, Celestine, Errol, Sam. Thank you, Meryl, for your kindness. Sam, Margot, Tim, Selena, and on Instagram we have Marlene. We have a bunch of Carpenterific. Some names I can't make out. Yeah, De Televenta, make that one out. Louise, Akoe, and a few others. Okay. We begin the third chapter. Third chapter in one word is Esser, 10. Chapter 2 in one word was Chelik, a part of God rather than a creation of God. That's the origins of the divine soul. It's a part of God. And as we explained yesterday, great length, great conversation we had afterwards also. We got some great feedback from people that really, it gave them clarity. I think maybe some other people, maybe they lost clarity. I hope not. I hope not. But the bottom line is, Judaism is based on Jewish teachings. It's based on Jewish law and not based on our desire to have something one way or the other. That'll be a discussion for another time. So now the question is, okay, so we know where the divine soul comes from. Chachma above, that's a part of God, as we said, that God, He and His wisdom, He and His knowledge are one. He's the known, the knower, and the known as one, which by us is three separate entities, right? As we explained, so we come from a very lofty place, yet there's, and that was a metaphor of it, the seed from the father. But then when it comes into the, in utero, the metaphor, in the mother, so from that one seed, from that one source comes many different parts, limbs of a body, of a fetus. That's what we explained yesterday at great length, right? And that's how you have different levels of souls, even though different levels of souls, but yet they all come from the same place. Okay, now, what's the makeup of this soul? Not where it comes from, not that it's a part of God, rather than creation of God. What is its makeup? Well, since it's a part of God, so that means, as we learned in yesterday's class, right? A part of, so that means there's that part of God. What is that? God has 10 divine attributes. 3 intellectual and 7 emotional. Which means we have that in us too. We have 3 intellectual and 7 emotional. Now we're going to learn later, we have it in our godly soul, and we also have it in the animal soul. Again, that will be later. But now we're speaking about the godly soul. And so, 2 categories, intellect and emotions. That's the makeup. The Alter Rebbe calls it interesting. Intellect, he calls them mothers. Because what do mothers do? They give birth to a child. That's what a mother is. Someone who gave birth to a child. What is intellect? It gives birth to something. What does it give birth to? It gives birth to emotions. It gives birth to emotions. Okay. How that works will be tomorrow's class. But here he's setting, the groundwork for us to understand. Right? Now, the 3 intellectual, of course, are Chabad, Chachma, Bina, Vidas, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge is the way we translate it. I don't know if that's really a good translation, but, that's okay. It's a working tool. Right? So that's intelligence. Intelligence is mothers that give birth to emotions. What is emotions? The Alter Rebbe calls them kfulos, doubles. What does it mean, doubles? When it comes to an emotion, there's the external aspect of it and the internal motivator of that emotion. So we have 7 emotions. Chesed, kindness. Gvura, severity or strength. Tiferes, beauty / compassion. Netzach, endurance, victory. Hod, acknowledgement, humility. Yesod, foundation, connectivity. And the final one, Malchus, royalty. Sometimes there's different ways we sometimes use the Malchus. Right? So, kindness, you do a kindness. Why do you do a kindness to somebody? Because there's an inner quality or an inner emotion that leads you to do that kindness to a person. And what is that? Love. Love is the inner quality of, or the motivator, the inner quality of the soul, of the emotion that motivates you to do an act of loving kindness, the deed. Awe motivates you to withhold, to hold back out of awe. Right? You refrain. And that's what kavura is. Strength. Let's put it on a simple level. You fear eating this food because even though you have a desire for it, right? It's not good for you. So you have a fear, right? Now, that's not what we're talking about over here, because here we're talking in regards to the godly soul, right? We're talking about the godly soul. So here is a fear and a dread of God. You have a sense of God's presence. And that makes you refrain from saying something maybe, not appropriate. It makes you refrain from even thinking a negative thought. Because God's presence, you have a sense of God's presence. So you push away that thought. That's all an expression of the godly soul. Those are the two basic emotions, inner emotions, love and awe, that, or fear. Fear meaning the fear of God's presence, not the fear of punishment. Because here again, the reference here is, what's the reference here? The godly soul. So what is love for the godly soul? Well, it's a love of God that will bring you to do a loving act for someone. Towards God, towards another, right? That's what it will bring you to. So that's the emotions. And that's why it's called kfulos, doubles. There's the inner, right? Now the Alter Rebbe goes back to the intelligence and explains it. Chokhmah comes from two words, koach ma, the power of what? It is the flash of intuitive intelligence, of a genuine, new thought that came from beyond. That's why it's the power of what? Because it came beyond you. It wasn't like, you worked it through. Like you had a problem with something and all of a sudden, oh, eureka, the light bulb goes off. That light bulb, that's chokhmah. Now that light bulb, that flash, it's more like I don't know if light bulb is a good term. It's more like no. It's more like thunder, or lightning rather. More like lightning, right? The lightning, psh, there and gone. Same thing with chokhmah. It's there, and if you don't then do the next step and bring it into bina, bina coming from the word to understand, to take it to its depth and breadth. Chokhmah, it's just a point, right? As we explained actually in yesterday's class, chapter 2, that chokhmah, right, is where the seed comes from the father, right? Just as chokhmah is a point, so likewise in that seed of the child is everything, is the entire child, right? Not developed, but potential. So likewise in chokhmah, the entire idea is there in that flash that comes into your head. Now, of course, you don't have it. You have to then bring it into bina, that you can now bring it a breadth, a depth, and a length. That gives you then a full development of the chokhmah, bina, and bina coming from the word to build. You're taking the essential idea and building off it. In other words, fully developing it, the quintessential point that you have, in order that it is a fully understood with one's mind. That's the idea of bina. The two of them together are called father and mother. Well, you guessed it. Who's the father? Chokhmah. Right? Because what does the father do? Give a seed. What does the mother do? Develop it. Well, what does bina do? It takes the seed of knowledge and develops it. That's mother. The two of them together are mother, emotions. How? We'll see tomorrow. We'll see how that happens. What's the process? How does that work? When you think about it, intelligent people, and emotional people, and how intelligence and emotions seem to be very different. So how does intelligence feed and give rise to emotions when they're so very different? So more on that tomorrow. So let's take this apart a bit, unpacking it. First of all, interesting point. Did you ever wonder why there are 7 days of the week? It seems so arbitrary. It seems like really doesn't make sense. Why would there be 7? 10 is a divisible number, right? It's a whole number. It's a complete number. So why 7? Now, of course, you're going to say, well, because God created the world in 7 days. Oh, okay, that's true. Why did he do that? Why 7? Why not 10? You know why? Because 7 emotions. There are 7 emotions. And hence, those 7 emotions are imbued in creation. Divine emotions, of course, God's emotions are imbued in. So the first day is Chesed, second day is Gvura, the third day is Tiferes, so on and so forth, right? Which is fascinating, showing us how the Torah and mystical literature gives us an understanding of the simplicities of this world that we may never have asked about. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So why is the Alter Rebbe calling intelligence mothers? Think about it. Intelligence is intelligence itself. Mothers means it's like an end, a means to an end. That's what a mother is. She's serving her children. As a mother, obviously a woman is a woman, and we're talking about the motherhood. We're not talking about a person now, right? A person can be a mother and other things too, 100%. That's not the point over here. So it's not about pinning somebody, a woman, and saying, you're just a mother. No, although there's nothing greater, as my wife would say. There's nothing greater. But that's not the question is, why is the metaphor of intelligence, to understand it, or why is it called mothers, that it's about giving birth to emotions? Why isn't intelligence an end in itself, a value for itself? Understanding godliness. We're talking here about the godly soul. So your intelligence, when you're learning Tanya now, you're understanding God, His ways, your relationship with Him. That's amazing. That understanding is seemingly a great value. So why is he calling it mothers? So I'm giving my own thought on this because I really didn't see this elsewhere, but that's okay. I'm sure you won't mind that. What's the purpose of intelligence? Just to know? Attack upon it. The doctor that knows the ills of smoking and yet smokes. So he knows the information, but it's not affecting him, right? He knows all the information very well, but it's not affecting him. The entire purpose of intelligence, ultimately, is that it should affect the change in us, in our heart first, right? That's the divine way. That's, the divine way in our heart. You know something about God? That should bring you a greater love, a greater awe of God, right? Now, to be sure, and I'll be quite honest, not everything I know does that for me. It's a struggle. This is what the godly soul, if we're really attuned to the godly soul, then this is what would happen when the godly soul, is engaged in knowledge of God, of studying Torah and knowing God through Tanya and the like, that it's going to change us. We're not going to be the same we were before we learned. Now, I would suggest that all of us are this way to some degree, right? Maybe not on a daily basis, but if you look back 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and where you are today in your connection to God because you've learned Tanya day in, day out, I would imagine it has been developed and it is stronger, better in your behavior and even somewhat in your emotions of love and awe. So I think that's a very powerful idea, why, And doubles? Doubles? Because ultimately, the emotions, as we're going to learn a lot about, is going to be about love and awe, or / fear / respect and awareness. Yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful idea. So, question I have: how many of you actually, you know what? In a way, I'm gonna wait for this question for tomorrow. If it's any worse for tomorrow, sorry. Okay. Questions? Questions, comments, thoughts. I see some questions here. On the feed before I forget, or I lose it rather. Oh. 2 question marks before you read your question, so I could see that it's a question.
Lori has 2 questions if you want me to.
Hold on, let me. That's weird. How did I miss it? Give me a second. Yes, I lost the feed. Go ahead.
Sure. So I captured them.
Oh, I see here. Oh, okay. I see. It's is intuition an intellectual or emotional attribute? Intuition is not intellectual, that's for sure. I mean, you mean like you have a hunch about something? Yeah, like you have a hunch that this is not a good deal to get into? That's not intellectual. And for sure is not talking about what we're talking about here. That intuition, anyways. Is it emotional? It's not emotional in what we're talking, not from the divine soul. Not from the divine soul. Intuition. I don't know, think about that. Where, I don't have to think about it. Good question, Lori, but I'm not certain. But definitely it's not part of the godly soul in what our discussion is here. Is it part of the animal soul? Probably. Animal soul just, well, you know what? Actually, in a certain way, it makes sense that it's part of the animal soul. Why? Is because animal means instinctual, right? By instinct. So, intuition is an instinct. So yes, it's for sure part of the animal soul. Very good question. Oh, I see your other question. How did I miss it? Oh my gosh. And this helps support the theory of cognitive therapy to help with depression and anxiety. Right. Self-awareness. Right. Knowing that you know something and it should affect you. Knowing that your emotions have two layers to it. There's the external expression of it and the motivator inside, the love and all. Yeah. Again, just to remember, this is in reference to the divine souls, so it's not about regular human day stuff. Rambam today, 1 o'clock. Absolutely. Marjan. In Atlanta. If our minds control our hearts, does that mean we have zero control over emotions? Well, if you're controlling your heart, then you have control over your emotions. I don't understand how you have zero. You have control of your emotions. We'll speak more about it tomorrow when we understand, okay? When we get the full picture. Marjan, excellent question. I'll give a better understanding tomorrow because we're missing an element now. We're going to close up the 3rd chapter tomorrow, so then we'll have a better idea. Okay. Yes, so about okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any other questions, comments, any thoughts? Instagram? Okay. No questions, no comments. I guess there's clarity. That's great. I just want to say kol hakavod to everybody that's here. How you come in day out. You have here on Facebook so many that come in every day. On Clubhouse, Instagram. It's amazing. Amazing. You inspire. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. No, I'm not coming from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim. Coming from my home in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Afreiliche Chanukah, happy Chanukah, everybody. 1 o'clock Rambam. See you tomorrow for Tanya. Be well.